Before we starting, I need to tell you something. What you're about to hear isn't fiction. These are real accounts from real people who ventured into the Pacific Northwest wilderness and came back different. Some barely came back at all. I've spent months collecting these stories, verifying details, and cross-referencing reports. And here's what keeps me up at night: the forest doesn't care about your plans. It doesn't care about your experience or your equipment. When something goes wrong out there, you're not just alone. You're in its world now. So if you're planning a hike anytime soon, maybe wait until after this. Because once you know what's actually out there, you can't unknow it. You'll hear it in every snapping branch. You'll feel it in every shadow that moves wrong. And you'll understand why some trails have warnings that don't quite explain what they're warning you about. My name is Marcus Webb, and I was a park ranger in Olympic National Park for 11 years. Was. Past tense. Because what happened in October 2019 made me turn in my badge, sell my house, and move to a city where the only trees are in parking lots. People ask me why I left such a dream job. I told them I wanted a change. But that's a lie. The truth is, I heard something on a radio frequency that shouldn't exist, and I can't ever go back into those woods knowing what I know. It started on a Tuesday. Normal autumn day. Cold, wet, typical Pacific Northwest weather. I was stationed at the Hoh River Ranger Station, and we'd gotten a report about a missing hiker. Sarah Chen, 28, experienced backpacker, had permits for a 5-day solo trek on the High Divide Loop. She was supposed to check in 2 days prior. Didn't. Her emergency contact, her brother, called us worried. This wasn't like her, he said. She was meticulous, always checked in. We initiated standard search protocol. I coordinated with 2 other rangers, Mike and Jennifer, and we planned to head out at first light. But here's where it gets strange. That night, around 2 a.m., I was alone at the station doing paperwork when the old emergency radio crackled to life, not the main radio. The old one. The backup system we barely used anymore, mounted on the wall, covered in dust. It shouldn't have been on. I hadn't turned it on. But there it was, static hissing through the speakers, and then a voice. A woman's voice. Broken, desperate, barely audible through the interference. Help. Please. The static swallowed the rest. I grabbed the receiver, my hands shaking. This is Ranger Webb at Hoh River Station. Identify your location. Repeat, identify your location. More static. Then her voice again, clearer this time. And I'll never forget the tone. Don't panic. Worse. Resignation. They're not people. Oh God, they look like people but they're not. They're watching me right now. They're smiling. Why are they smiling? My blood went ice cold. Who's watching you? Where are you? Give me landmarks. Silence. Long, horrible silence. Then, so quiet I almost missed it, don't come for me. It's too late. Whatever you hear tonight, whatever sounds like me calling for help, don't follow it into the woods. It's not me anymore, the radio went dead. I tried every frequency, every channel. Nothing. I checked the call logs. The radio hadn't received any transmissions according to the digital record. But I heard it. I know I heard it. I didn't sleep that night. Sat there, staring at that radio, waiting for it to speak again. At dawn, Mike and Jennifer arrived. I told them about the call. Mike looked concerned, but not about the content. He was concerned about me. He suggested maybe I'd fallen asleep, and had a stress dream. But I knew better. We headed out anyway. Search and rescue doesn't stop because one ranger has a bad feeling. We followed Sarah's planned route, and found her campsite from night 3. Tent was still standing, perfectly organized. Sleeping bag laid out. Food properly stored. In a bare canister hung from a tree. Her backpack sat inside the tent, fully packed like she'd planned to leave that morning but never did. Nothing was disturbed. No signs of struggle, no animal activity, no blood. Just an abandoned camp that looked like someone had simply vanished mid-preparation. Jennifer found her phone 20 feet from the tent, lying face up in the dirt. Dead battery. We bagged it as evidence. That's when Mike called out. He'd found boot prints leading away from the camp, heading off trail into dense forest. Sarah's size, Sarah's tread pattern. We followed them. Here's what made my skin crawl: the prints were perfect. Too perfect. Every step had the same depth. Same spacing, like she was walking with mechanical precision. No stumbles, no shifts in weight, no natural variation. I've tracked hundreds of hikers. Nobody walks like that, especially not off-trail in rough terrain. We followed the prints for maybe half a mile, and then they just stopped. Middle of nowhere, no landmark, no destination. The last print was in soft mud, perfectly formed, and then nothing. No more tracks. No disturbance in the surrounding vegetation. It was like she'd been plucked straight up into the air. Jennifer wanted to call in a helicopter for aerial search. Mike agreed. But I was staring at something that didn't make sense. About 10 feet from where the tracks ended, there was a tree. Old-growth Douglas fir, massive trunk, had to be 300 years old. And carved into the bark, fresh, still weeping sap, were words, "They wear US." I reached out to touch the carving, and Mike grabbed my wrist. "Don't," he said. His voice was tight. "Let's just mark the location and get back. Something's wrong here." We all felt it. That specific feeling you get when you're being watched, but there's nobody around. The forest was too quiet. No birds. No insects. Just wind through branches and our own breathing. We hiked back in silence, faster than we should have, practically running. By the end, called in our findings. Search and rescue expanded the operation. They brought in dogs, helicopters, and volunteer teams. Searched for 6 days straight. Found nothing else. Nobody. No trace. No evidence beyond that abandoned camp and those impossible footprints. Sarah Chen was declared missing, presumed dead. The case went cold. But here's what I didn't tell anyone. 3 nights after we found her camp, I was back at the ranger station. Alone again. And that old radio turned itself on. Same static. Same frequency. But this time, the voice that came through was different. It was Sarah's voice, I'm certain of that. But it sounded wrong. Too flat. Like someone doing an impression without understanding emotion. Ranger Webb. Thank you for looking for me. I'm home now. I'm safe. Tell my brother I'm safe. I pressed the transmit button. Sarah. Where are you? Are you at a hospital? We need your location. The response came immediately, and this is what made me resign. This is what broke something in me. I'm in the forest, Marcus. I've always been in the forest. We're all in the forest. Don't you want to come see? Don't you want to come home too? It's beautiful here. We're waiting for you. We're all waiting. Then I heard something in the background of that transmission that I can't explain. Voices. Dozens of them. Hundreds maybe. All talking at once, overlapping, saying the same thing in perfect unison: "Come home. Marcus. Come home. Come home. Come home." I ripped the radio off the wall. I smashed it on the floor. Stomped on it until it was plastic shards and broken circuits. But I could still hear them. Not through the radio. Through the windows. Through the walls. Coming from the forest itself. I locked every door, every window, and turned on every light in the station. Sat in the middle of the room with my service weapon in my lap until sunrise. When morning came, everything was silent again. Normal. Birds singing, wind in the trees, nothing unusual. But I was done. I submitted my resignation that day. They tried to talk me out of it. Asked if I needed counseling, time off. I said no. I just needed to leave. And I did. Here's the thing that keeps me up in my apartment in Seattle, 3 hours from any forest. Sarah's brother called me 2 months after she disappeared. Said he'd gotten a postcard. No return address, postmarked from a town near Olympic National Park. All it said was, "I'm happy now. Don't look for me." The handwriting was Sarah's. He had it analyzed. It was definitely her handwriting. But Sarah never left those woods. I know she didn't. So who sent that postcard? Or what? And why could it write like her, talk like her, but couldn't quite get the emotion right? I don't have answers. But I have a warning. If you're hiking in the Pacific Northwest and you hear someone calling for help, someone who sounds hurt or lost, don't follow it. Not immediately. Stop. Listen. See if the voice sounds right. Because sometimes, the forest learns how to call you by name. And once you answer, once you go to it willingly, you're not coming back. Not really. You might walk out. You might go home. You might live your life. But something will be different. Something will be missing. And late at night, when it's quiet, you'll hear them calling. Come home. Come home. Come home. I'm not using my real name for this one. Call me David. I'm a wildlife photographer, and I've spent the last 15 years documenting animals in the Cascade Range. It's my passion, my career, my entire life. Or it was, until last spring when I collected footage from my trail cameras and found something that made me question everything I thought I knew about those mountains. I've debated sharing this for months. My therapist says talking about it might help. My lawyer says I'm opening myself up to ridicule. But people need to know. Especially people who hike alone. I had 40 trail cameras set up across 100 square miles of wilderness. Motion activated. Infrared night vision, high resolution. I'd check them every 3 months, swap out SD cards, and review thousands of photos looking for wildlife behavior. Bears, cougars, elk, wolves. Sometimes I'd catch hikers passing through. Most of the time it was just trees swaying in the wind, triggering false activations. Boring work, but occasionally you get something incredible. A lynx hunting at dawn. A wolverine with her cubs. Those moments make it worthwhile. In April, I did my regular collection run. It took me 5 days to hike all 40 cameras. Everything seemed normal. Beautiful spring weather, wildflowers blooming, snow melting from the high elevations. I felt good. Optimistic. Got back to my truck. Drove home, transferred all the data to my computer. I started reviewing footage that evening with coffee and my catalog spreadsheet. Camera 1 through 15, normal stuff. Deer, raccoons, 1 black bear. Camera 16 was positioned on a ridge overlooking a valley, about 12 miles from the nearest trailhead. Remote area. Almost nobody goes there. I started clicking through the photos. Standard deer images. Then, photo number 47, a person. Standing completely still, facing the camera, about 30 feet away. Middle of the night, 3:17 a.m. according to the timestamp. The infrared gave everything that ghostly white glow. At first I thought, okay, weird time for a hiker. But maybe they're doing a night trek. Except something was off. The person was wearing what looked like hiking clothes. Jacket, pants, boots. But they were standing perfectly motionless, arms at their sides, staring directly into the camera. Not like they'd triggered it by walking. Like they'd approached it and stopped. Deliberately. To pose, I zoomed in on my face. The resolution was good enough to see details, and what I saw made my stomach twist. The expression was wrong. A smile. Too wide. Eyes too open. Like someone trying to smile who'd only heard it described but never seen it done. I told myself I was being paranoid. Just an odd photo. People do weird things in the woods. But then I clicked to the next image. Same person. Same position. But closer. Maybe 5 feet closer. The camera had triggered again exactly 1 minute later. Same impossible smile. Same unblinking stare. Next photo, 1 minute later, closer again. Next photo, closer. Next photo, closer. 12 photos total, spanning 12 minutes, each one showing this person moving steadily toward the camera but only when the camera wasn't actively shooting. Like they knew the intervals. Like they were testing them, the final photo showed them standing directly in front of the lens. So close their faces filled the entire frame. And in that last image, the smile was gone. The expression was nothing. Blank. Empty. Just eyes reflecting the infrared light like an animal's would, and a mouth slightly open. The next photo, 1 minute later, showed the camera's normal view. Empty forest. The person was gone. I sat there staring at my screen, trying to rationalize it. Maybe someone was screwing with me. Maybe they found my camera and decided to be creepy. But that didn't explain what I found on the next 3 cameras. Camera 17, 8 miles away, same figure, same night, same progression of photos getting closer and closer. Camera 18, 6 miles in a different direction, same thing. Camera 19. 12 miles from any of the others, same figure, same behavior, same time stamps. Wait. The same time stamps. I pulled up all 4 sequences side by side. The photos from all 4 cameras were taken at the exact same times. 3:17 a.m., 3:18 a.m., 3:19 a.m. Same minutes, same seconds. But these cameras were miles apart. Rough, mountainous terrain. Nobody could move between them that fast. It would take hours of hiking. But according to my cameras, this person, or whatever it was, had been at all 4 locations simultaneously. That's when I noticed the pattern. I checked every camera. 32. Of my 40 cameras had captured this figure. Same night. Same progression of approaching images. Same impossible time stamps showing it in multiple locations at once. But 5 cameras had something different. 5 cameras had captured photos after the figure got close. After those final close-up shots. And in these photos, taken minutes later, I saw something that still gives me nightmares. The figure was walking away from the cameras. But not alone. In each image, there was someone else with them. Different people at different cameras. 3 men, 2 women, based on clothing and build. All walking with the same mechanical precision I'd seen in the approaching shots. All heading deeper into the wilderness. Away from trails, away from safety. All following that thing. I need you to understand something. I recognized one of those people. Camera 23, east side of the valley. The figure was walking away with someone in an orange jacket and blue backpack. I'd seen that exact person in earlier footage from the same camera. 3 days before the night visits. Happy hiker, taking a break, drinking water, checking a map. Living their life. Then 3 days later, walking into the forest at 3 a.m. with something that wasn't human. I tried to enhance the hiker's features, see if I could identify them, maybe file a missing persons report. But their faces were blurred in every frame. Not camera malfunction. Just their faces. Like something was preventing me from seeing clearly. Meanwhile, the figure leading them was always perfectly clear, always in focus, always wearing that same empty expression. I didn't sleep for 2 days. I researched missing hikers in that area. Found 7 reported disappearances over the past 3 years in the region where my cameras were placed. 7 people who went hiking and never came back. I cross-referenced dates with my photo archives. 4 of them matched. 4 different people, 4 different cameras, all captured walking away with that figure on the nights they disappeared. I had evidence. I had proof. I called the police, asked to speak with someone about missing persons cases. They transferred me to a detective. I explained I had trail camera footage that might be relevant to unsolved disappearances. He sounded interested, and asked me to send the images. I did. Send everything. The approach sequences, the simultaneous appearances, the people being led away, all of it. The detective called me back 3 hours later. Mr. Thompson, he said, using the fake name I'd given for this story. We reviewed your images. There's nothing there. Just wildlife and empty forest. What are you talking about? I have clear photos of a figure approaching my cameras. I sent you dozens of files. Sir, we see deer, we see trees, we see normal trail camera footage. There's no figure. No people. Are you feeling okay? Do you need us to do a wellness check? I hung up. Pulled up the files I'd sent him. I checked them on my computer. The figure was there. Clear as day. I sent them to my phone, checked them again. Still there. Send them to my laptop. Still there. But apparently, when law enforcement viewed them, they saw nothing, so I'm stuck with this knowledge, this evidence that only I can see. Or maybe that's not quite right. Maybe the people who matter already know. Maybe they've always known, and there's a reason those cases go cold, a reason nobody searches too hard when someone disappears in the deep wilderness. Because what would they find? How do you track something that can be in multiple places at once? How do you rescue someone who walks away willingly, following something that calls to them in ways we can't understand? I pulled all my cameras last month. Every single one. I'm done with wildlife photography. Done with the wilderness. I sold my equipment, deleted my archives, and burned the SD cards. But I kept one thing. One photo. Printed it out, keep it in my desk drawer. It's the clearest shot I got of the figure's face. That empty, too wide smile. Those reflective eyes. And on the back, I wrote a note to myself, something to remember if I ever feel the urge to go hiking again. It knows you're there. It's always known. And if you're alone, if you're far enough from help, it will come for you. Not to hurt you. Worse. It will make you want to follow. And you will. You'll walk away from your tent, your supplies, your safety. You'll walk deeper and deeper into the wilderness, and you won't feel scared. You'll feel peaceful. You'll feel like you're finally going home. And maybe that's the most terrifying part. Maybe the people who disappear aren't victims. Maybe they're willing. Maybe that thing shows them something so beautiful, so perfect, that they choose to leave everything behind. Maybe right now, they're out there. Happy. Or what passes for happiness when you're not quite human anymore. I've had offers from paranormal investigators, cryptid researchers, people who want to see my photos. I refuse. This isn't entertainment. This is a warning. The Pacific Northwest wilderness is vast, ancient, and not empty. We like to think we're the apex predator, that we own these forests because we've mapped them and named them. But something else lives there. Something that was there long before us and will be there long after. Something that hunts in ways we don't understand, that collects people like we collect photographs. And it's patient. So patient. It can wait at your camera for hours, learning your technology, understanding your patterns. It can visit 40 locations in one night, searching, always searching. And when it finds someone alone, someone vulnerable, someone who won't be missed immediately, it doesn't attack. It invites. That's so much worse than violence. Violence you can fight. An invitation, especially one that feels like coming home, that's impossible to resist. If you hike in the Cascades, in Olympic National Park, in any of the deep wilderness areas of the Pacific Northwest, do me a favor. Don't go alone. And if you're out there at night, if you hear something moving in the darkness, something that sounds almost but not quite like footsteps, don't investigate. Don't shine your light toward it. Just pack up, head for the trailhead, and don't look back. Because if you see it, if you make eye contact, it will know you. And knowing you means it can find you again. Next time, you might not have the strength to walk away. Next time, you might follow. This story comes from my cousin, Tyler. He's not the type to make things up or exaggerate. Works in construction, practical guy, doesn't believe in ghosts or conspiracy theories. But something happened to him and his friend Josh on a hunting trip in the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest that changed him. He tells this story once, maybe twice a year, only when he's had enough drinks to dull the edge of it. He told me I could share it. Said maybe someone else has experienced something similar, and if they have, he wants them to know they're not crazy. November 2017. Tyler and Josh drove up for a weekend hunting trip. Early season elk, perfect weather, good conditions. They'd hunted this area before, and knew it reasonably well. Logged out sections mixed with old growth, network of Forest Service roads, decent access. They had permits, tags, all the legal requirements. Loaded up Josh's truck Friday after work, drove 3 hours into the mountains, set up camp at a dispersed site off one of the logging roads. Simple camp. 2 tents, a fire ring, and coolers. Nothing fancy. The plan was to scout Saturday, hunt Sunday, drive home Monday morning. Saturday went fine. They hiked maybe 8 miles, saw tracks, some fresh elk signs, and identified a few promising areas for Sunday. I got back to camp around 5 p.m., started dinner, and sat around the fire. That's when they noticed the smell. Rotting meat. Strong clothes. Tyler thought maybe something had died nearby, bear kill or natural death. They walked the perimeter of the camp with flashlights, but couldn't find a source. The wind shifted and the smell faded. They figured it had drifted from somewhere downwind, so they didn't worry about it. Went to bed around 10 p.m. Tyler woke up at 1:30 a.m. to the sound of Josh's tent unzipping. He heard Josh's footsteps, walking away from camp. Assumed he was going to piss, rolled over to go back to sleep. But then he heard Josh's truck door open. Engine start. What the hell? Tyler climbed out of his tent. Josh's truck was idling, headlights on, pointing down the logging road deeper into the forest. Away from the highway. Away from civilization. Josh was in the driver's seat, hands on the wheel, staring straight ahead. Tyler walked over, knocked on the window. "Josh. What are you doing, man?" Josh didn't respond. Didn't even look at him. Tyler opened the door. "Josh, what's wrong? You okay?" That's when Josh spoke, and Tyler says his voice was flat, emotionless, like he was reading from a script. "They need help. We have to go help them." "Who needs help?" Tyler looked down the logging road. Darkness. Nothing but trees and dirt roads. "Nobody needs help, Josh. There's nobody out here. Come back to bed. They're calling. Can't you hear them? They need us." Josh started to put the truck in gear. Tyler, getting worried now, reached over and turned off the ignition, pulled the keys out. "Hey. Wake up. You're dreaming or something." Josh finally looked at him, and Tyler said his eyes were wrong. Dilated. Unfocused. Like he was sleepwalking with his eyes open. After a moment, awareness seemed to return. Josh blinked, looked confused. "What? Why am I in the truck? You don't remember?" Getting up, coming out here, saying someone needs help. Josh shook his head. "The last thing I remember is falling asleep." Tyler convinced him it was a weird dream, maybe altitude or something. They went back to their tents. Tyler kept the truck keys. Figured better safe than sorry. He didn't sleep well after that, and kept listening for movement. Around 3 a.m., he heard it. Someone calling for help. A man's voice, distant, echoing through the trees. "Help. Please, someone help me. I'm hurt." Tyler sat up, heart pounding. That's what Josh heard. That's what made him get in the truck. But something about the voice was off. Too perfect. Too clear. Like it was being broadcast through a speaker. "Help. Please. I can't walk. I need help." Tyler unzipped his tent. Saw Josh's tent was already open. Empty. No. Tyler grabbed his flashlight, his hunting rifle, and ran toward the truck. Josh was already there, keys in hand. Wait, Tyler had the keys. How did Josh have keys? Tyler shouted at him. "Josh, stop. Don't get in the truck." But Josh was climbing into the driver's seat again, and this time he locked the doors. Tyler pounded on the window as Josh started the engine. "Josh, listen to me. There's nobody out there. It's not real." Josh looked at him, and this time Tyler saw something he'd never seen in his friend's face before: fear. Josh was terrified. But not of whatever was calling. He was terrified of not going. Like resisting was causing him physical pain. His hands were shaking, sweat on his forehead despite the cold. "Help me." The voice called again. "Please, I'm dying out here." Josh put the truck in gear. Tyler made a split-second decision. He wasn't losing his friend to whatever this was. He smashed the driver's side window with the butt of his rifle. Glass shattered everywhere. Josh cried out, snapped out of whatever trance held him. Tyler reached through, unlocked the door, dragged Josh out of the truck. Josh fought him. Actually fought him, throwing punches, trying to break free. Tyler had 50 pounds on him, wrestled him to the ground. Josh was sobbing now. "We have to help them. We have to go. They're hurting. They need us. Nobody's there, Josh. It's not real. The calling continued. Multiple voices now. Men, women, even children. All crying out in pain, begging for help, describing injuries in horrible detail. Please, my leg is broken, bones through the skin. I'm bleeding so much. Someone please. My daughter, she's not breathing, we need an ambulance. Help us. Why won't anyone help us? Tyler held Josh down, covered his ears. Don't listen. It's not real. It's trying to trick you. They stayed like that for maybe 10 minutes, Tyler physically restraining his friend while those voices called and called and called. Then, suddenly, silence. Complete silence. No voices. No wind. No forest sounds. Tyler let go of Josh. They sat in the dirt next to the truck, breathing hard, covered in sweat and blood from the broken glass. Josh was crying quietly. What the hell was that? What was happening to me? I don't know. But we're leaving. Right now. They packed up camp in 15 minutes. Didn't bother folding tents properly, just threw everything in the truck bed. Tyler drove, Josh sat in the passenger seat staring at his hands. As they pulled onto the main logging road, heading toward the highway, Josh spoke. When I heard those voices, when they were calling for help, I felt something I can't describe. It was like my entire purpose, my entire reason for existing, was to go find them. Like nothing else mattered. Family, job, my own life, it all became background noise. The only real thing was that I needed to help them. And here's the worst part. When you stopped me, when you pulled me out of the truck, I hated you. For just a moment, I wanted to kill you for preventing me from going. My best friend since 4th grade, and I would have killed you if I could have. What does that mean? They drove in silence for maybe 20 miles. Then Tyler saw something that made him hit the brakes. On the side of the logging road, illuminated in the headlights, was a car. Old sedan, covered in dirt and moss, flat tires, windows broken. Abandoned. Tyler got out to look, Josh stayed in the truck. The car's license plate was from Oregon, registration sticker showed 2014. 3 years old. Tyler peered through the driver's window. Keys still in the ignition. Wallet on the passenger seat. He opened the door, careful not to touch anything with his bare hands. Checked the wallet. Driver's license for a man named Robert Keller. Address in Portland. Tyler took a photo of the license with his phone, closed the car door, and got back in the truck. They drove to the ranger station at the forest entrance, reporting what they'd found. The ranger looked up Robert Keller. Missing person report filed in 2014. Went camping with 2 friends in Gifford Pinchot, never came back. His car was found on a logging road. No trace of him or his friends. The ranger looked at Tyler and Josh carefully. You boys were camping near mile marker 34. Tyler nodded. Have you heard anything strange? Voices maybe. Tyler and Josh glanced at each other. The ranger continued. We get reports. Not often, but regularly. Campers hear calls for help, people in distress. Some investigate. Most of those don't come back. The ones who do, the ones who resist, they tell similar stories. Overwhelming compulsion to drive deeper into the forest. We found 11 abandoned vehicles in the past 20 years. All the same area, all the same story. People just walk away from their cars, their camps, everything. Walk into the forest and vanish. There's a theory, the ranger said, and he looked uncomfortable saying it. This area was heavily logged in the 60s and 70s. Dangerous work. Men died out here regularly. Crushed by falling trees, equipment accidents, exposure. The company didn't always report deaths properly, didn't always recover bodies. Some folks think, and I'm not saying I believe this, but some folks think those men are still out here. Still calling for help. Still trying to be found. And when someone hears them, really hears them, that person becomes compelled to search. Becomes obsessed. Walks into the forest to help, and then they're part of it too. Their voices join the calling. More searchers creating more victims in an endless cycle. Tyler asked the obvious question. Why don't you close this area? Put up signs. The ranger smiled sadly. We tried. Signs get torn down. Roads get used anyway. And here's the thing. Not everyone hears it. Most people camp here without any problems. It seems to choose who it calls. We don't know why. Don't know the pattern. Could be random. Could be something specific about a person's psychology, their openness to suggestion, their empathy. People who want to help others might be more vulnerable. We just don't know. Tyler and Josh left. Drove straight home, didn't stop. Tyler says he still thinks about Robert Keller and his two friends. Wonders if they're out there, wandering the forest, adding their voices to whatever calls in the night. He wonders what would have happened if he'd been alone, if there'd been nobody to stop him from following those voices. Would he be out there too? Another missing person file? Another abandoned vehicle? Here's what keeps Tyler up at night, what he only admits when he's really drunk. Part of him still wants to go back. Part of him still hears those voices, even years later, even hundreds of miles away. Sometimes he wakes up and finds himself getting dressed, keys in hand, heading for his car without consciously deciding to. He has to force himself to stop, remind himself it's not real. His wife doesn't know. She thinks his nightmares are from combat, but Tyler never served. The combat is ongoing, happening in his head, every single night. A battle against the urge to drive back to that logging road, park where he parked before, and walk into the trees. Because they're still calling. They never stopped. And someday, he's terrified that he won't be strong enough to resist. If you ever camp in a logged area in the Pacific Northwest, and you hear someone calling for help in the middle of the night, think very carefully before you respond. Ask yourself, does this make sense? Would someone really be out here, hurt, at this exact moment? Or is it too convenient, too perfect? If your gut says something's wrong, trust it. Stay in your camp. Don't investigate. Don't try to help. I know that sounds cruel. I know it goes against every decent instinct you have. But the thing calling isn't human. It just sounds human. And if you go to it, if you let it pull you into those trees, you're not coming back. You'll become part of the chorus, another voice in the dark, calling the next victim. The forest is patient. It can wait. Don't give it what it wants. I'm a field biologist. Names irrelevant. What matters is what I found in the North Cascades during a survey expedition last summer. I was contracted by the Forest Service to assess wildlife populations in a remote area slated for potential trail expansion. Standard work. Hike in, set up base camp, spend 3 weeks documenting species, collecting data. I do this kind of work all the time. Usually it's peaceful, rewarding, exactly why I got into this field. But this trip was different from the moment I arrived. The area I was surveying was rugged, rarely visited, no established trails. I had GPS coordinates, topographic maps, and 30 pounds of scientific equipment. Hiked in solo, which I've done dozens of times. The first day was normal. Made good progress, set up camp near a creek, filtered water, and ate dinner. On the second day, I started my survey grid. That's when I found the building. It shouldn't have been there. My maps showed nothing. No structures, no historical sites, nothing. But there it was, maybe 2 miles from my camp, tucked into a small valley surrounded by dense forest. A research station. Concrete foundation, metal walls, flat roof covered in moss and branches. Old, clearly abandoned, but structurally intact that I approached carefully. The door was unlocked, hanging slightly open. No signs, no identification, no clue what this place had been used for. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. Single large room, maybe 40 feet by 20 feet. Lab benches along the walls, cabinets, old equipment. Everything is covered in dust and decay. But here's what struck me, it wasn't old enough to match the level of decay. The style of equipment suggested maybe 1980s, early 90s. But the deterioration looked like 50 years of neglect. Rust, rot, mold, far beyond what 40 years should produce. I started looking around, scientific curiosity overcoming caution. Found old logbooks in a filing cabinet. Water damaged, pages stuck together, but some entries were legible. I carefully separated pages, photographed what I could read. The station had been operated by something called the Pacific Northwest Ecological Research Initiative. Never heard of it. Can't find any information about it even now. The logs detailed experiments on local wildlife. Population tracking, behavior analysis, normal stuff. But as I read further, the entries became strange. One entry from June 1987, cameras continue to capture unidentified species. Morphology inconsistent with known mammals. Bipedal locomotion, height approximately 7 feet, apparent intelligence. Samples collected but tissue analysis returns inconclusive results. DNA degradation is too rapid for standard testing. Another entry, August 1987, 3 research staff have requested early termination of assignments. Psychological evaluations show elevated stress, paranoia, sleep disturbances. All 3 report identical dreams of being observed by subjects. Recommend rotation of personnel to prevent further psychological deterioration. September 1987, Dr. Harmon disappeared during routine sample collection. A search party found his equipment 1 mile north of the station. No signs of struggle. Harmon's journal recovered. Final entry states, they are not animals. They understand what we're doing. They've been allowing us to study them. Why? What do they want? The final entry I found was dated October 1987. Handwriting barely legible, scrawled frantically across the page. Evacuation initiated. Containment failed. They entered the station during the night shift. No violence. They simply stood in the corners watching us. When we tried to leave, they didn't stop us, but they followed. Staying just out of sight. Always watching. Command has ordered complete abandonment. All research materials to be destroyed. This station is to be sealed and removed from all official records. Under no circumstances should anyone return to this location. But the station wasn't sealed. It was just left. Forgotten. And now I was standing in it, reading documents that weren't supposed to exist, learning about experiments that had clearly gone very wrong. I should have left immediately. That would have been the smart move. But I'm a scientist. I wanted to understand. I searched the rest of the facility. Found more equipment, more logs, more evidence of whatever they'd been studying. In a back cabinet, I found photographs. Black and white, slightly faded. They showed creatures. Tall, humanoid, covered in dark hair. But the proportions were wrong. Arms too long. Heads are too large. And the eyes. Even in black and white photographs, the eyes were disturbing. Too aware. Too intelligent. Too human in something that wasn't human. One photograph showed researchers in the field, taking measurements of footprints. Massive footprints. Another showed something in a cage. One of the creatures, captured, restrained. It was staring at the camera with what I can only describe as contempt. Not animal fear. Contempt. Like it was offended by its captivity but not particularly concerned. The final photograph showed the inside of the station. Research staff working at the lab benches. And in the background, barely visible through a window, a face. One of the creatures, standing outside, watching them work. Nobody in the photo seemed aware of it. I took photos of everything. Documents, images, equipment. I knew I needed to report this to the Forest Service, maybe coordinate with a university. This was significant. Evidence of unknown species, government research, a cover-up. But as I was photographing, I heard something outside. Movement. Heavy footsteps. Something large moving through the brush around the building. I froze. The footsteps circled the station slowly, methodically. Stopped at the door. I was standing maybe 15 feet from the door, camera in hand, heart pounding so hard I could hear it. The door was still partially open. Through the gap, I saw movement. Something tall blocking the light. Then it spoke. I know you're in there. I need you to understand something. You're not supposed to be here. This place was removed from maps for a reason. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. The voice was human. Completely human. Calm, measured, reasonable. That somehow made it worse. If it had been a growl, an animal sound, I could have processed that. But this was a person talking to me. Or something that sounded exactly like a person. The voice continued. The people who worked here made a mistake. They tried to study us without permission. Without understanding. They thought we were animals. They were wrong. We allowed them to believe it for a while because we were curious about them too. But they became intrusive. Disrespectful. So we ended their project. A pause. I could hear breathing. Slow, steady breathing from just outside the door. You're different. You haven't tried to capture anything. Haven't tried to take samples. You're just observing. We appreciate that. So I'm going to give you a choice. You can leave now. Take your photos, take your research, go back to your camp and then go home. Tell whoever you want about this place. Show them your evidence. It won't matter. They won't believe you. They'll say you faked it. They'll discredit you. That's what happened to the others who tried to share what they found. Or, you can stay. You can learn. We can show you things your science hasn't discovered. Things your species isn't ready to. No. But if you stay, you don't leave. Ever. You become part of this place, part of the forest, part of us. I found my voice. Forced words out. What are you? Silence. Long silence. Then, we've been here longer than your kind. We've watched you spread across these mountains, cutting trees, building roads, pretending you own land that was never yours. We've stayed hidden because it's easier. Because most of you aren't worth revealing ourselves to. But some of you, the curious ones, the ones who come deep enough into our territory, those we give a choice. Some choose to stay. They're happy. Happier than they ever were in your world. What do you choose? I backed toward a window at the far end of the station. Kept my eyes on the door. I choose to leave. I hear breathing, faster now. Disappointed? Angry? I couldn't tell. Very well. Go to your camp. Pack your equipment. Hike out. Don't come back. And please understand, if you do come back, if you bring others, we won't be this courteous again. I climbed out the window, dropped to the ground outside, and ran. Didn't look back. Didn't stop until I reached my camp. Threw everything into my pack, didn't bother organizing it. I started hiking toward the trailhead. It was late afternoon, I had maybe 3 hours of daylight. I pushed hard, covering ground as fast as I could with a heavy pack. Kept looking over my shoulder. Never saw anything. But I felt like I watched the entire time. Made it to my truck at dusk. Threw my pack in the back, started the engine, drove. Didn't stop until I was 2 hours away. I found a motel, checked in, locked the door, and finally let myself process what happened. I reviewed my photos that night. All the documents, the logbooks, the images of creatures. They were there. Clear, legible, exactly what I'd photographed. But when I tried to upload them to my computer, something went wrong. Files corrupted. All of them. Every single photo from inside that station was damaged, unreadable. The only photos that survived were from before I found the building. My survey work, wildlife, landscapes. Everything from the station, gone. I tried recovery software. I tried everything I knew. Nothing worked. It was like the data had been selectively destroyed. Only those specific files. I filed my report with the Forest Service. Said I'd completed the survey, found healthy wildlife populations, no concerns. Didn't mention the station. What would I say? I found an abandoned research facility that doesn't exist on any map, read about secret experiments, talked to something that might not have been human, and oh by the way all my evidence mysteriously corrupted. They'd pull my contract. Probably recommend psychiatric evaluation. But I kept the logbook pages. The ones I photographed. They weren't corrupt because I'd written notes by hand, transcribing some of the entries. I have those notes. Physical paper. And they prove, at least to me, that I didn't hallucinate this. That station was real. Those experiments were real. And whatever they were studying is still out there, watching, waiting for the next curious person to wander too deep into their territory. I haven't been back to the North Cascades. Haven't taken any contracts in that region. When people ask why, I say I'm focusing on other ecosystems. But the truth is I'm afraid. Not of physical danger. Whatever that thing was, it kept its word. It let me leave. I'm afraid of the choice. Because part of me, a small but growing part, wonders what I would have learned if I'd stayed. What they could have shown me. What secrets exist in those mountains that science will never discover because we're not ready. Or not worthy. And here's the most disturbing part, sometimes late at night I hear that voice again. Not outside my window, not in the physical world. In my head. Quiet. Patient. Reminding me the offer still stands. I can come back. I can learn. I can stay. And every night it gets a little harder to remember why I said no. This one comes from a woman named Rachel. She's part of a hiking club in Portland, about 20 members who do regular weekend trips. They're experienced, safety-conscious, well-equipped. Not the type to take unnecessary risks. But in September, 6 members of the group went on a night hike in the Columbia River Gorge and only 4 came back. The other 2 were found 3 days later. They won't talk about what happened. Refused to discuss it. But Rachel, who wasn't on that hike, pieced together the story from the others. She shared it with me because she's trying to understand what went wrong. Trying to figure out if her friends did something to cause this, or if they were just unlucky. The hike was supposed to be simple. 8-mile loop trail, well-maintained, clearly marked. They'd hiked it before daylight. The group wanted to experience it at night, see the stars away from city lights, and challenge themselves with navigation. 6 people went, Tom and Lisa, a married couple, Derek and Amanda, dating, and 2 solo hikers from the club, Marcus and Jen. They started at 8 p.m. Clear night, full moon, good visibility. Everyone had headlamps, maps, GPS devices. They checked in with Rachel by text at the trailhead. Said they'd check in again when they finished, probably around midnight. Midnight came and went. No text. 1 a.m. Nothing. By 2 a.m., Rachel was worried. She called Tom. Voicemail. Called Lisa. Voicemail. Went through the whole group. Nobody answered. At 3 a.m., she called search and rescue. They mounted an operation at first light. Found Tom, Lisa, Derek, and Amanda at the trailhead parking lot at 6 a.m. They were sitting in Tom's car, windows up, doors locked. When the search and rescue team knocked on the window, they didn't respond at first. Just stared straight ahead. Eventually Tom unlocked the door. The team asked what happened, where were Marcus and Jen. Tom said they got separated. Said it quietly, emotionlessly. Wouldn't elaborate. Search teams found Marcus and Jen that afternoon. They were together, maybe 3 miles off trail, sitting under a tree. Unharmed physically. But mentally, they were gone. Catatonic. Wouldn't speak, wouldn't make eye contact. Just sat there staring at nothing. They were taken to a hospital, kept for evaluation. After 2 days, they started responding to questions. But they wouldn't discuss the hike. Said they didn't remember. Trauma-induced amnesia, the doctor said. The 4 who returned to the car were more communicative, but their story didn't make sense. Rachel interviewed them separately, and here's what she learned. The hike started normally. They were in good spirits, enjoying the night air, the moonlight through the trees. Made good progress. Around mile 3, Derek noticed something odd. There was another group on the trail behind them. He could see their lights, maybe a quarter mile back. He mentioned it to the others. They weren't concerned. Popular trail, not unusual to encounter other hikers. But Amanda pointed out they hadn't seen any other cars at the trailhead. Where did this group come from? They kept hiking. Every time someone looked back, those lights were still there. Same distance behind them. Never gaining, never falling back. Just following. At mile 4, Lisa said something that made everyone stop. The lights behind them matched their own exactly. Same number. 6 lights. Same formation. Like a mirror. Tom thought she was being paranoid, but when they all turned to look, she was right. 6 lights, moving in the exact same pattern as their group. Derek had an idea. He signaled everyone to turn off their headlamps simultaneously. Complete darkness. They stood there, waiting for their eyes to adjust to the moonlight. The lights behind them turned off too. At the exact same moment. Marcus called out. "Hello. Identify yourselves." No response. Just silence and darkness. They turned their lights back on. The lights behind them turned on. "Okay," Tom said. "That's creepy. Let's pick up the pace. Get back to the trailhead." They walked faster. The lights behind them kept pace. Still the same distance. Amanda kept looking back, counting the lights, making sure. 6 lights. Always 6 lights. Always the same formation. At mile 5, the trail forked. The loop continued left. The right path led to a dead-end viewpoint, half a mile out and back. Tom made a decision. "We're going right. If they're just hikers, they'll continue on the main trail. If they follow us, we'll know something's wrong." The group took the right fork. I walked toward the viewpoint. Everyone kept glancing back. The lights behind them stopped at the fork. Stayed there. Didn't follow. "See?" Tom said. "Just other hikers. We're being paranoid." But Jen pointed out something. If they're continuing on the main trail, why did they stop? Why aren't they moving? The 6 of them reached the viewpoint. Beautiful overlook, valley below, stars above. They took a moment to catch their breath, drink water. When they looked back toward the trail, the lights were gone. Relief flooded through the group. "See?" Lisa said. They kept hiking. "We're fine." They headed back to the fork, returned to the main trail. That's when they heard singing. Someone was singing. A children's song. "Ring Around the Rosie." Female voice, young, echoing through the trees. Coming from ahead of them, further down the trail. The direction they needed to go to return to the trailhead. Everyone stopped. "That's a kid," Amanda said. "What's a kid doing out here?" The singing continued. "Ashes, ashes, we all fall down." Then giggling. High-pitched, delighted giggling. "Hello." Lisa called out. "Are you okay? Do you need help?" The giggling stopped. Silence. Then, from behind them, the same child's voice, "We're playing a game. Do you want to play?" They spun around. Nothing. No one there. Just trees and moonlight. The voice came from a different direction now, to their left. "You have to catch us before we catch you." Marcus said what? They were all thinking. "We need to leave. Now." They started moving fast, almost running. The singing started again, but now it was multiple voices. Children's voices. Coming from all around them. In front, behind, both sides. "Ring around the rosy, pocket full of posies." Tom was leading, GPS out, confirming they were on the right trail. 2 more miles to the trailhead. They could make it. Just keep moving. Don't stop. Don't engage. The voices kept singing, getting closer. Derek saw movement in the trees. Small figures, running parallel to the trail. Staying just out of the light. He counted them. 6 figures. Lisa saw them too. Whispered to the others. "There are 6 of them. Same number as us." That's when the lights appeared again. Not behind them this time. In front. 6 lights, blocking the trail, stationary. Tom stopped so suddenly Amanda ran into him. "Go around," Marcus said. "We'll go off trail, loop back." But when they stepped off the trail into the trees, the lights moved to block them again. Hurting them. Controlling their movement. Jen was crying now, trying to keep quiet. What do they want? What is this? The children's voices answered, catch us. You have to catch us. One of the figures darted across the trail, close enough for Tom to see it clearly. He describes it as a child-shaped shadow. Human outline, size of maybe an 8-year-old, but no features. No face, no clothing details. Just a black silhouette. And it moved wrong. Too fast. Too fluid. Like it was gliding instead of running. The group huddled together, back-to-back formation, lights facing outward. The figures circled them. 6 shadows, moving in a ring around them. Still singing. Ring around the rosy. Then one of the figures spoke in a voice that wasn't childlike anymore. It was deep, adult, wrong, one of you has to stay. That's the game. 1 stays, 5 go. Choose. Nobody responded. They were too terrified. The voice repeated, choose, or we choose for you. Tom tried to negotiate. We don't understand. What do you want? Why are you doing this? The figures stopped moving. All 6 stood motionless, forming a perfect circle around the group. The voice spoke again, this forest requires payment. You walked the trails without permission. Without tribute. One of you has to stay. Last chance. Choose. Marcus stepped forward. His voice was shaking but determined, I'll stay. The others shouted protests, tried to pull him back. But Marcus shook them off. Let them go. Take me. The figures shifted. Moved closer to Marcus. Then Jen stepped forward too. I'm staying with him. You're not doing this alone. Marcus tried to argue but Jen grabbed his hand. We stay together. The figures seemed to consider this. Then all 6 spoke in unison, acceptable. The other 4, run. Don't look back. Don't stop. Go now. Tom, Lisa, Derek, and Amanda ran. They said later it was the hardest thing they've ever done. Leaving their friends. But something compelled them. Pure terror overrode every other instinct. They ran down the trail, lights bouncing wildly, not looking back. Behind them, they heard Marcus and Jen screaming. Not pain. Worse. Laughter. Marcus and Jen were laughing, hysterical, uncontrollable laughter. Then silence. The 4 reached the trailhead at 11:30 p.m. Got to the car, locked themselves inside. Couldn't process what happened. Couldn't speak. When search and rescue found Marcus and Jen the next day, they were physically fine. No injuries, no signs of exposure. But mentally, they were broken. It took weeks of therapy before they could function normally again. They still won't discuss it. Rachel says they've left the hiking club, moved away from Portland. Cut off contact with everyone. Here's what haunts Rachel. She researched the history of that trail. Found something disturbing. In the 1920s, there was an orphanage in the area. It burned down one night. 17 children died. The ruins are still there, about half a mile from that loop trail. And according to local folklore, people have reported hearing children singing in those woods for decades. Most people dismiss it as wind, imagination, wildlife. But some people, the ones who hear it up close, report the same thing: the children want playmates. They want someone to stay. And they won't let you leave until you give them what they want. Rachel's hiking club hasn't been back to that trail. They've discussed disbanding entirely. Because they all understand something now that they didn't before: the Pacific Northwest wilderness isn't just dangerous because of weather or animals. It's dangerous because there are things in those forests older than our civilization. Things that have rules we don't understand. And if you break those rules, even accidentally, even unknowingly, you pay a price. Sometimes that price is just fear. A terrible experience and bad memories. Sometimes the price is higher. Sometimes the price is you. This story is from a man I'll call James. He's a lifelong hunter, third-generation outdoorsman, knows the Cascade Wilderness better than most people know their own neighborhood. He's in his 60s now, and has been hunting elk in the same region for 40 years. Never had any problems. Until 3 years ago, when he had an experience that made him sell all his guns and swear he'd never hunt again. He told me this story in his living room, surrounded by old hunting photos, and I could see his hands shaking as he spoke. November 2020. James and his hunting partner Carl had permits for a week-long elk hunt in a wilderness area east of Mount Rainier. Remote country, rugged terrain, perfect elk habitat. They'd been hunting together for 30 years, and had the routine down perfectly. Set up camp, scout during the day, hunt at dawn and dusk. They'd harvested elk there before, knew the land, knew the patterns. This was supposed to be just another trip. Day 1 and 2, nothing unusual. I saw some elk signs, heard bugles in the distance, and didn't get any shots. Normal hunting. Day 3, James woke up early, before dawn. Carl was still asleep. James grabbed his rifle and headed out alone to a ridge they'd scouted the day before. Good vantage point, overlooked a valley where elk were known to feed at first light. He settled into position, waited for sunrise. That's when he noticed the smell. Musky, pungent, like a wet dog mixed with something else. Something rotten. He figured maybe an elk or deer had died nearby. Didn't worry about it. Light started filtering through the trees. James scanned the valley through his scope. Saw movement. 3 elk, cows, grazing in the meadow below. He was looking for a bull, so he waited. Patient. Then he saw something else. A figure, human-sized, walking upright, moving through the trees at the valley edge. Another hunter. But hunting season didn't allow other hunters in this specific zone. They had exclusive access. James watched through his scope. The figure moved into a clearing. Not a human. Too tall. Maybe 7 feet. Covered in dark brown hair. Arms too long. Walking on 2 legs but hunched forward. James felt his heart rate spike. Bigfoot. He was looking at a goddamn Bigfoot. He'd heard stories his whole life. Other hunters claiming sightings, strange footprints, vocalizations. He'd always been skeptical. Figured people saw bears, got confused, let their imagination run wild. But this was clear. Daylight, good visibility, less than 200 yards away. This was real. The creature stopped. It turned its head. Looked directly at James. Even from that distance, James could see its eyes. Large, dark, intelligent. They made eye contact. Hold it. James didn't move. Didn't breathe. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but he was frozen. The creature raised one hand. Pointed at James. Hold the gesture. Then it opened its mouth and made a sound James describes as the most terrifying thing he's ever heard. A howl. Deep, resonant, echoing across the valley. Not an animal sound. Not a human sound. Something in between. The howl went on for maybe 10 seconds. When it stopped, James heard responses. Other howls, coming from multiple directions. Behind him. To his left. To his right. He was surrounded. The creature in the valley turned and walked away, disappearing into the trees. James ran. Didn't care about stealth, didn't care about his hunting spot. Just ran back toward camp as fast as he could move through the forest. Burst into camp gasping. Carl was making coffee, looked up startled. What happened? Did you shoot something? James tried to explain between breaths. Bigfoot. I saw it. There are multiple. We need to leave. Carl thought he was joking at first. Then he saw James's face and realized he was serious. They didn't pack up camp. Just grabbed essential gear, loaded rifles, started hiking toward where they'd parked the truck, 3 miles away. They made it maybe a mile when they heard crashing in the brush behind them. Something large moving fast. Chasing them. James and Carl ran harder. The crashing kept pace. Never getting closer, but never falling behind. Just maintaining distance. Hurting them. They realized they weren't being chased. They were being followed. Monitored. Whatever was behind them could have caught them easily. It was choosing not to. They reached the truck, threw their gear in the bed, and climbed in. James started the engine, drove down the Forest Service road faster than he should have. The road was rough, rutted, meant for slow speeds. But James didn't care. He needed distance. They drove maybe 5 miles when Carl shouted. Stop the truck. James hit the brakes. Ahead of them, blocking the road, was a tree. Massive Douglas fir, at least 3 feet in diameter, lying across the road. Recently fallen. The cut end was visible. Sap is still wet. This tree had been cut down. Deliberately placed to block the road. James put the truck in reverse. Started backing up. Carl was watching behind them. Another tree fell across the road. Behind them. They both heard it. The crack of wood, the crash as it hit the ground. They were boxed in. James sat there, engine running, both of them gripping rifles, waiting. Waiting for whatever came next. Then they heard tapping on Carl's window. Both of them jumped, swung their rifles toward the sound. A hand. Massive hand, covered in dark hair, fingers too long, tapping almost politely on the glass. Carl screamed. The hand gestured. A motion that clearly meant, roll down the window. Carl looked at James. What do we do? James had no idea. But something in him, some instinct, said, comply. Show you're not a threat. He told Carl to crack the window. Just an inch. Carl did. The hand withdrew. Then a face appeared at the window. The creature James had seen in the valley. Up close now. Less than a foot from Carl's face. James got his first clear look at it. The face was almost human. Broad nose, deep-set eyes, strong jaw. But the proportions were wrong. The eyes were too large, too knowing. The creature looked at Carl. Then at James. Then it spoke. The voice was deep, rumbling, but the words were clear. Human words. You hunt without asking. You take without giving. This is not your land. James found his voice. We have permits. Legal permits. The creature's expression didn't change. Your laws mean nothing here. These mountains belong to us. You are guests. Unwelcome guests. James tried to negotiate. We'll leave. We won't come back. We're sorry. The creature seemed to consider this. You've hunted here for many years. I took many elk. Never asked permission. Never left a tribute. Why should I let you leave? James didn't know how to answer. Carl was crying silently, tears running down his face. James said the only thing he could think of, because we didn't know. We didn't understand. We're just men. We make mistakes. Teach us what we should have done, and we'll do it. The creature stared at him. Long, evaluating stare. Then, you will leave your weapons. All of them. You will leave your vehicle. You will walk out of this forest. When you reach the highway, you will not return. You will not tell others what you saw. You will not hunt these mountains again. Do you agree? James and Carl both nodded. We agree. The creature stepped back from the window. The trees blocking the road began to move. Not falling, not rolling. Lifting. Being lifted by something, multiple somethings, in the forest. The trees were moved aside, clearing the road. The creature pointed toward the cleared path. Go. Now. James drove forward slowly. As they passed the creature, it watched them. James glanced in the rearview mirror. Saw at least 6 more of them, standing in the road behind the truck. All watching. All silent. They drove for an hour, and didn't speak. When they reached the highway, James pulled over. They sat there, processing. Finally, Carl said, "Did that really happen?" James nodded. "We have to honor it. The agreement. We can't tell anyone. We can't go back." They never did. James kept his promise. Sold his guns, told his family he was too old for hunting. But the real reason is fear. Not just fear of the creatures. Fear of what it means. If they're real, if they're intelligent enough to speak, to make agreements, to enforce rules, what else is real? What other things exist in those forests that we don't know about? What other rules are we breaking? James says he dreams about that creature's face. The intelligence in those eyes. The way it spoke English, clearly understanding not just the words but the concepts. Rights, permission, tribute. These aren't animal thoughts. These are the thoughts of a society. A civilization. One that's been here longer than ours, one that stayed hidden, watched us invade their territory, tolerated us until we pushed too far. And when we push too far, they push back. Usually they just scare people. Make them leave. But James wonders what happens to people who don't comply. People who fight back, who refuse to leave. Who break the rules even after being warned. He's researched missing hunters in the Cascades. There are a lot. More than you'd expect. Most are explained as accidents. Fell off a cliff, got lost, died of exposure. But some, the ones who are never found, who vanish completely, James wonders about those. Wonders if they met something in those woods that decided they'd crossed a line. He's shared this warning with me because he's old now, doesn't think he has much time left, and wants someone to know the truth. If you hunt in the Pacific Northwest, particularly in remote wilderness areas, be respectful. Understand that you're not alone out there. Something else lives in those forests. Something that's been there far longer than us. And it's watching. Always watching. If you're lucky, you'll never see it. If you're respectful, you'll be tolerated. But if you push too far, if you take too much, if you act like you own land that isn't yours, you'll get a visit. And you'd better hope they're in a merciful mood. Final story. This one comes from a couple, Ryan and Stephanie. Young couple, late 20s, outdoor enthusiasts. They'd planned a romantic weekend backpacking trip in the Olympic Mountains. 2 nights, 3 days, moderate difficulty trail. They'd been dating for 2 years, this was supposed to be a special trip. Anniversary celebration. It turned into the worst experience of their lives. They told me this together, finishing each other's sentences, supporting each other through the difficult parts. They're still together, still in love, but something changed between them in those woods. Something they're still trying to understand. They started Friday afternoon. Beautiful May day, perfect weather. The plan was to hike 6 miles to a designated backcountry campsite, stay 2 nights, and hike out Sunday. The first day went perfectly. Got to the campsite around 5 p.m. Set up their tent, filtered water from a nearby stream, cooked dinner, and watched the sunset. Romantic, peaceful, exactly what they'd hoped for. They went to bed around 10 p.m., exhausted from the hike. Stephanie woke up around 2 a.m. I needed to pee. She unzipped the tent quietly, trying not to wake Ryan, grabbed her headlamp and walked about 50 feet from the tent. Did her business, was about to head back when she saw something that made her stop. Light. In the distance, through the trees. Warm, orange light. Like a fire or lantern. She was confused. They were in designated wilderness. No structures, no other campsites nearby. Where was that light coming from? She walked back to the tent, woke Ryan. There's a light out there. I think maybe other campers. Should we go say hello? Ryan looked. Saw the light. Checked his map. Nothing should be in that direction. They debated. Finally, curiosity won. They grabbed flashlights, left their tent, and walked toward the light. It was further than it looked. They walked maybe 15 minutes, uphill through dense forest. The light stayed visible, guiding them. Finally, they emerged into a clearing. And in the middle of that clearing was a cabin. Small, rustic, log construction. Lights glowing from the windows. Smoke rising from a chimney. Music playing inside. Faint, old-timey music. Like a record player. Ryan and Stephanie looked at each other. This doesn't make sense. This area is protected wilderness. No structures allowed. But there it was. Undeniably real. They approached carefully. I walked up to the front door. Ryan knocked. No answer. The music kept playing. He knocked again, louder. Hello? Anyone home? Still nothing. Stephanie tried the door handle. It opened. They stepped inside. The interior was warm, cozy. Fire burning in a stone fireplace. Furniture, table and chairs, oil lamps providing light. A record player in the corner, playing jazz. Everything looked period appropriate. Like the 1930s or 40s. But everything was also pristine. No dust, no decay. Like someone lived here and had just stepped out. On the table, 2 plates. 2 glasses of wine. Untouched. Like they'd been set for guests. Ryan picked up one of the wine glasses. Still cold. Fresh. Stephanie walked to the back of the cabin. Single bedroom, neatly made bed. Bathroom with a basin and pitcher. No running water. No electricity. But the oil lamps were lit, the fire was burning. Someone had prepared this. Recently. Ryan called out again. Hello. We're sorry to intrude. We're backpackers, we saw your light. I just wanted to make sure everything's okay. Silence. Then, from outside, they heard footsteps. Someone walking on the cabin's porch. Heavy boots. Deliberate steps. They both turned toward the door. It was still open. A shadow crossed the threshold. A man stepped inside. Tall, maybe 6'2", wearing old-fashioned clothes. Work pants, flannel shirt, suspenders. Boots. A hat. His face was weathered, aged, hard to determine how old. 50. 70. His eyes were what caught Stephanie. Clear, blue, piercing. He looked at them without surprise. Like he'd been expecting them. "You came," he said. His voice was rough but not unfriendly. "I've been waiting." Ryan tried to explain. "We're sorry to bother you. We're camping nearby. Saw your light. Didn't realize anyone lived out here." The man smiled. "Lived? That's an interesting word. I suppose I do live here. In a manner of speaking." He gestured to the table. "Please. Sit. Have some wine. I made dinner. You must be hungry." Something about his demeanor was off. Too calm. Too prepared. But they were in his home, uninvited. I felt rude to refuse. They sat. The man served them. Stew, bread, vegetables. It smelled incredible. It tasted incredible. Real, solid, delicious food. Better than their backpacking meals. They ate, drank wine, and felt relaxed. The man watched them. Stephanie asked questions. "How long have you lived here? How do you get supplies?" The man answered vaguely. "It's been a long time. It's been a long time. Supplies aren't difficult when you know the land." He asked them questions too. "Where are you from? How long have you been together? Are you happy?" Strange questions, personal questions, but the wine was making them loose, comfortable. They answered honestly. They were happy. In love. Planning a future together. The man nodded. "Good. That's good. Love is rare. Real love. Most people never find it." He stood up, walked to the fireplace. Stared into the flames. "You should stay here tonight. It's warm. Comfortable. Better than a tent." Ryan and Stephanie glanced at each other. "That's generous," Ryan said, "but we should get back to our camp. Our gear is there." The man turned to look at them. His expression had changed. Harder. "Your gear will be fine. I insist. Stay. Just tonight." Something in his tone made Stephanie nervous. She stood up. "Thank you for dinner. Really. But we need to go." The man didn't move. Didn't stop them. Just watched as they headed for the door. When they reached it, he spoke. "You won't find your way back. Not tonight. The forest moves when I tell it to. You can walk for hours. You'll just end up here again." Ryan laughed, uncomfortable. "What does that mean?" The man walked toward them slowly. "It means this clearing, this cabin, exists outside your maps. I built it that way. A place between places. People stumble here when they're meant to. When I call them. And tonight, I called you." Stephanie grabbed Ryan's hand. Pulled him toward the door. They stepped outside. Started walking back the direction they'd come. Behind them, they heard the man's voice. You'll be back. They always come back. They ran. Ran through the forest, following their own footprints in the dirt. But after 20 minutes, they emerged into a clearing. The same clearing. The cabin was in front of them again. No. Ryan pulled out his phone. No signal, but GPS still worked. He checked their coordinates. They'd been walking away from the cabin. Southeast. But somehow they'd ended up back at it. They tried again. Different directions this time. Northeast. I walked for 30 minutes, marking trees to avoid going in circles. Emerged into the clearing. The cabin. Again. Stephanie was crying now. What's happening? How is this possible? The man was standing on the porch. Arms crossed. Watching them with that same patient expression. Told you. You can't leave until I let you. Why are you doing this? Ryan shouted. What do you want from us? The man descended the porch steps. I walked toward them. I want company. I've been alone for a very long time. Do you know what it's like to be alone for decades? Watching people pass by, knowing you can't join them, can't leave, can't die. This cabin is my prison. My curse. I was a logger, in 1947. Cut trees in these mountains. There was an accident. Avalanche. Buried my whole crew. I survived. Barely. Took shelter in a cabin we'd built. Waited for rescue. Nobody came. I waited weeks. Ran out of food. I started to starve. Made a deal. With something in these woods. Something old. Promised it anything if it would save me. It did. Fed me. Keeps me alive. But the price was I could never leave. Never age, never die, never escape. I'm tied to this place. And the only way I can have company, the only way I can feel human again, is when people stumble into my clearing. I can keep them here. Just for a night. Just to remember what it's like to talk, to share a meal, to not be alone. Please, Stephanie said. Let us go. We have families. People who love us. We'll come back. We'll visit. We promise. The man looked sad. They all say that. But they never come back. Once people leave, once they're free, they convince themselves it was a dream. They forget. I'll be alone again. So I don't let them leave. Not until morning. Just give me one night. That's all I ask. One night of company. Then, when the sun rises, the cabin will release you. You'll wake up in your tent, like none of this happened. Except you'll remember. And you'll know. Ryan and Stephanie realized they had no choice. They couldn't leave. They couldn't fight. Their only option was to wait. They went back inside the cabin. Sat with the man. I talked to him. Listened to his stories. Stories about logging camps, about the old days, about watching the world change through brief glimpses when hikers passed nearby. He wasn't cruel. Just lonely. Desperately, heartbreakingly lonely. Hours passed. The man showed them old photographs. His crew, his friends, all died for 70 years. Showed them tools, equipment, artifacts from another era. Finally, as dawn approached, he thanked them. You've given me a gift. A few hours of human connection. I won't forget. He walked them to the door. I opened it. The clearing outside was gone. Replaced by their campsite. Their tent, visible in the early morning light. Stephanie turned back. The cabin was fading. Becoming translucent. The man stood in the doorway, waving. Then he was gone. The cabin was gone. They were standing in the middle of the forest, 50 feet from their tent, with no explanation for how they got there. They packed up immediately. Hiked out that morning. I didn't speak much. Trying to process what happened. When they got home, they researched. Found records of a logging accident in 1947. 9 men buried in an avalanche in the Olympics. One survivor, named Thomas Garrett, was rescued 3 weeks later. Died in a hospital 2 days after rescue. Malnutrition, exposure. But wait, he died. So who did they meet? They found more records. Thomas Garrett's body was transported for burial. But the transport vehicle crashed. The coffin was lost. Never recovered. They never found Thomas Garrett's body. Ryan and Stephanie believe that what they met wasn't a ghost. Not exactly. It was something else. A man caught between life and death, sustained by whatever deal he made in those mountains. Trapped in a loop. Building and rebuilding his cabin, calling to lonely travelers, keeping them for a night just to feel human. They felt sorry for him more. Then they were afraid. But they never went back. And they'll never hike in the Olympics again. Because here's the thing that terrifies them: what if they did go back? What if they returned to that clearing, found the cabin, and Thomas was there waiting? Would they be able to leave a second time? Or would the cabin recognize them, claim them, keep them forever as payment for escape the first time? They don't want to find out. So they stick to day hikes now. Populated areas. Never overnight trips. Never wilderness. Because the Pacific Northwest has places that don't follow our rules. Places where reality bends. Where the past refuses to die. Where lonely souls trap the living, not out of malice, but out of desperate, eternal need for company. And once those places know you, once you've crossed their threshold, they remember. They wait. And if you ever return, they welcome you home. Forever. So here we are. 7 stories. 7 warnings. 7 reasons to think twice before you plan that solo backpacking trip, that remote camping adventure, that wilderness excursion deep into the Pacific Northwest. I'm not saying don't go. These places are beautiful, awe-inspiring, and worth experiencing. But go with respect. Go with awareness. Understand that these mountains, these forests, they were here long before us. They'll be here long after. And they have their own rules, their own inhabitants, their own ways of maintaining balance. We're just visitors. Sometimes tolerated. Sometimes tested. And sometimes collected. If you take anything from these stories, take this: trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. If you hear someone calling for help but it sounds off, think carefully before responding. If you find structures that shouldn't exist, locations that aren't on maps, don't investigate alone. If you encounter something that defies explanation, don't try to rationalize it at the moment. Just get to safety and process it later. The wilderness doesn't care about your logic or your understanding. It operates on its own terms. Respect that. Fear that. Survive that. And if you're out there right now, if you're listening to this while camping, while hiking, while sitting in your tent in some remote corner of the Pacific Northwest, take a moment. Listen to the sounds outside. The wind through the trees. The distant animal calls. The cracking branches. Can you distinguish what's natural and what's not? Can you tell the difference between a deer moving through brush and something else? Something that learned how to sound like a deer. Because that's the thing about these mountains. Everything has learned to mimic. To adapt. To hunt by sounding like what you expect. So listen carefully. And if you hear something that makes your skin crawl, something that triggers that ancient survival instinct buried deep in your brain, don't dismiss it as paranoia. That instinct exists for a reason. It's kept humans alive for thousands of years. Trust it. Act on it. Get to safety. The Pacific Northwest is vast. Millions of acres of wilderness. Most of it mapped, documented, understood. But not all of it. There are gaps. Places between the maps. Valleys that satellite imaging misses. Forests so dense that light barely penetrates. And in those gaps, in those shadows, things persist. Old things. Patient things. Things that have watched us evolve from primitive survivors into modern hikers with GPS and satellite phones. They've adapted. They've learned. They know how to use our technology against us. How to manipulate our perceptions. How to exploit our curiosity, our compassion, our bravery. You might think I'm exaggerating. Using creative license to make mundane events sound sinister. Maybe you're right. Maybe these stories are just misunderstandings, coincidences, the product of scared minds interpreting natural phenomena. Maybe. But the people who lived these experiences, who shared these stories, they believe. Completely. Totally. And their belief has changed their lives. They don't go into the wilderness anymore. They've moved away, changed careers, developed anxiety disorders. These aren't people seeking attention. They're traumatized. Genuinely traumatized by something they can't explain. So believe what you want. Dismiss these as campfire tales if it helps you sleep. But if you're planning a trip into the Pacific Northwest wilderness, do yourself a favor. Tell someone where you're going. Check in regularly. Don't deviate from your planned route. Stay in groups. Carry protection. Not just bear spray. I mean satellite communicators, emergency beacons, ways to call for help when cell service fails. And most importantly, if something happens, if you encounter something unexplainable, don't try to be brave. Don't try to investigate. Don't try to help mysterious voices in the dark. Just leave. Get out. Get to safety. Your life is worth more than your curiosity. These mountains will still be here tomorrow. They've been here for millions of years. They'll be here for millions more. But you're fragile. Temporary. One wrong decision, one moment of bad luck, one encounter with something that shouldn't exist, and you become another missing person statistic. Another cold case. Another family forever wondering what happened. Don't let that be you. Don't become story number 8. Thank you for listening. Thank you for letting me share these warnings. I hope they keep you safe. I hope you never need them. But if you do, if you find yourself in the Pacific Northwest wilderness and something feels wrong, remember these stories. Remember that you're not crazy. Remember that others have experienced similar things. And remember that the best thing you can do, the smartest thing, the only thing that guarantees you'll see your family again, is to leave. Don't question it. Don't delay. Just go. The forest will understand. It always does. And maybe, just maybe, if you show respect, if you acknowledge its power, if you leave when it warns you, it will let you return someday. On better terms. With better understanding. But that's a decision for later. For now, stay safe. Stay aware. And stay out of the deep wilderness unless you're absolutely prepared for what you might find there. Because the Pacific Northwest doesn't just test your survival skills. It tests your sanity, your courage, your understanding of reality itself. And not everyone passes that test. Some people disappear. Some people come back changed. And some people, like the ones who shared these stories, survive but never quite return to who they were before. The forest marks them. Claims a piece of them. Haunts them forever. Don't let it claim you. Please. Don't let it claim you.